Now, are these only precast or prestressed?
These are all precast. Everything you see on this side of the plant is precast. Rebar, wire mesh, no strand in it at all.
Precast can vary some load.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll usually.
Do you specify the load varying capacity of the precast?
The structural engineers will do that by design. They'll work with the architect. There's always an engineer of record on these jobs, and the engineer of record will say that wall panel has to be designed. Let's say you're going to put a double T roof on there. A double T roof will weigh 64,000 pounds. So when you do that, this side of the building, this wall panel, and then this wall panel will have to handle 64,000 total. So it'll be 32 and 32. So that means that wall panel will have to handle 32,000 pounds. Now it's up to my engineer to say, okay, that panel is no longer 8 inches thick, it's 10 inches thick, or it's 12 inches thick. Every piece that you see here has its own piece ticket. There's nothing that's duplicated. So the engineer has to go through every single one of these things and make sure the reinforcing is done right, making sure all the inserts are in the right spot, making sure all the integral parts of that are all done ahead of time before it comes into the plant. Okay?
Now, for these pieces, there are additional stresses for handling and transportation that in reality they will not be carrying in place. I mean, when you put this in place, it will not carry all the loads. Would you design it for the transportation stresses or the whatever happens?
The worst case scenario for a precast or pre-stressed product is when you strip it out of the form. This concrete will be taken from the time that you put it down into the form to the time that you take it out of the form will be no more than 18 hours. And we'll have achieved over 3,500 PSI in that concrete before we do that. And the reason being is, now remember, that concrete is still green. You pick it up, it still has all of its own dead load holding up by 4 lifting inserts, and you're actually stripping it away from the form. There's suction and everything else that's being on there. That's the worst case scenario that these panels will see. Once they're up, they're in their ultimate design mode. That's the way they're supposed to be. When they're laying down, they're susceptible to cracking and everything else like that. That's why we have a QC department, and before any of these panels are taken out of the mold, they have to break cylinders. And they will not break those cylinders until that concrete has achieved what my structural engineer says it has to achieve. Usually it's 3,500 PSI.
And the stresses at the time when you strip it would be 50% of that, or more, or less?
It's very close to capacity.
Complete?
Yeah, complete.
So not the 28 days thing?
No. It'll be, I'm sorry, when we strip it, normally a precast concrete panel that you see here is 5,000 PSI, maybe 7,000 PSI. We get 3,500 in 18 hours. So we're about 80%.
Okay.
In 18 hours. And then put it outside, and it'll sit outside for a while, and then you'll achieve your 28-day strength probably within 7 days.
You arrive to this high, relatively high, in short time with different types of curing, or different...
We usually use steam curing, or we have radiant heat curing inside the building. And folks, we don't do that because, you know, we want to be nice and putting extra concrete and putting extra, you know, that's cost to us. The reason we do that is money. We have to turn these pieces over every single day. We have to pour them, and we have to strip them out of the form, and then we have a whole new crew comes in and puts all the reinforcing in, and then we pour it again, and then we strip it out of the form. We have to do that real fast. And the only way we can do it fast is when we use a high-end concrete with no water added to it. It stays what the mixed design is. That's the beauty of a precast plant, and there's always records being kept. If anybody adds a gallon of water to a precast mix, it shows up on a ticket. Out in the field, when you guys go out and see ready mix being poured, it'll be poured and the guy will say, give me an extra 10 gallons of water in there, and that's when you see the concrete flow down and it looks like water. Okay, that's a reality of what happens. In a precast plant, that is not allowed to happen, because there's always a record following it. Okay?
How many times you can use your form?
On a form liner like this, we buy the very, very high-end polyurethane. You can use 100 pours on there. We pay, it's probably 5 times the amount of money as a standard plastic form liner. But our contention is we buy the very high end, leave it down on the bed, We don't have to come back and repair it and all that other kind of stuff, because you pay for what you get. What
you can use it for 10 times, 20, 100 times?
100.
100 times. Very good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any questions? There'll be a test, you know, written test.
How many different design do you have? Do you make that available to the architect or architect?
The question was, how many different types of designs do we give the architects? Truth be told, the architect tells us, I want a split limestone pattern. And we saw those, remember those little samples we saw up by the office? We make those samples, take them to the architect and say, is this what you wanted? They say no. Then they come up and say, I want this, or else they give us a picture of something. We actually had an architect come to us and they wanted a cedar fence made out of concrete. Sent the picture off to our form liner people, and they made a form liner that matched that cedar fence. So anything like that can be done with precast. Remember, all you're doing is putting concrete in a mold. Whatever that mold face looks like is what your repeat pattern will be. Here's smooth patterns. They call that a steel form because this thing is being poured down in a steel form. That's a smooth face. That's why precast concrete is getting a foothold in the architectural market, because we're offering a structural panel. Remember, you could put floors on this and everything else on this kind of a panel, but we're also giving an architectural face to it.
These are really nice looking panels.
Well, this is one that for the city of Naperville, they wanted. This is called a 3-part paint system. The painters actually come in there and they spray one color, that tan base that you see, then they physically hand roll the brown, and how many of you folks have ever seen that faux painting, you know, with the sponges? That's exactly what they're doing here.
I do some of that painting in my house.
So you could come out here and do this on here. I see an internship. Now these guys won't like you coming out and doing it. As you see, each one of those steps that they do is an individual person doing it.
Now, is this going to be sealed after they paint?
No, the stain they use is actually a sealer.
No, I'm with PCI, the factory.
What is this codes or numbers or enumerating system here?
Okay, remember I told you that each piece has its own ticket? That's what you're seeing here. This actually, when you see a set of shop drawings, panel number T86 will be somewhere in that wall somewhere, so that when they load these trucks, they load it so the one panel's here, then the next panel's here, the next panel is here, so that when they erect it, they just keep going down the line. Unfortunately, sometimes this might make it on this truck, and this one might make it on the next truck, and this guy goes and stops for coffee, and that truck shows up first. Welcome to construction project managers.
Now, when you have more than this ticket, you have more numbers here. 175, N1T, whatever. This is more.
Yeah, this is actually a pour date.
Okay.
When the panel was poured, this could be the inspector number.
Okay.
My plant inspector. And this stuff, it could be the north wall first panel.
Okay.
Panel number 1, panel 96 or T96 could be the project designation area. Panel number 175. When you see a set of precast drawings, you open it up, all these numbers will be reflected on those panels. This very likely is my QC department. The first QC inspector who came out here, and then the head of the QC department, before they authorize it to go on the trucks, have to certify that it's okay.
Okay. What are these steel tubes here, or in between?
Oh, that's just a rack.
Rack.
That's just a rack to hold the panels in there. The worst thing you want to do, you want to make sure that the panels are up off the ground, because remember, they're not completely cured when we bring them out here. So if I laid this on the ground and the ground goes this way, that panel could go like this. So we put, that's called dunnage. You'll see dunnage under every panel out here. You'll see dunnage on the trucks too. When a panel is laid flat, it's on dunnage.
Now, when you support it in this point and that point, will it make point stresses?
No, it's designed to handle, this is a dunnage point, and I believe they're at 5 feet in from the edge.
Okay.
That's calculated by design. The structural engineer tells our people where to put the dunnage. because you don't want to put it all the way out on the edge here, because your rebar and everything else might be a foot inside, and your rebar will come up like that. So if the rebar is not on this area, you'll start getting a crack right along there. Very good. That's a stress crack.
How much of marginal time do you have if the weather is not good for painting and doing this?
We have an inside painting booth. That building that you see right there is a metal fabrication shop specifically for precast. Those little plates that we saw on the side, they're made right here. We have certified welders and everything else that have to go through training and everything else before they can actually make these pieces.
Using the brush or spray, what's
on this particular, this is that 3-part painting. What they're doing, one guy is handling one color, one guy's handling another color,
okay.
And then you see the guy with the towel.
Yes.
Like your faux painting, it's exactly the same thing.
Okay.